The third-floor nursery felt too
What?
quiet.
No, this
Alistair
can't be
Vance, the
right.
7-month-old heir to the
I
Vance
have
Lock
to
satellite
check
fortune,
something right
hadn't made a
now.
sound in 4 hours. Eleanor Ellie Vance did not wait for the monitor. She sprinted across the penthouse's west wing. Her cashmere slippers offered no grip on the polished herringbone floor. She hit the mahogany door and threw it open. The room was heavy with silence. Drapes of custom Italian silk killed the New York daylight. Brenda Reese, the nanny, was curled in the oversized glider, her head lolling against the high back. She snored, a faint, wet sound. Next to her, a squat silver hip flask caught the single sliver of light from the hallway. "Brenda!" Ellie's voice was a knife-edge whisper, no movement. Ellie ignored the nanny. She dove toward the crib. Alistair lay flat, breathing in slow, deep, terrifyingly even intervals. His face was pale. She pressed 2 fingers against his neck. Pulse was there, too slow. She straightened and grabbed Brenda by the shoulder, hauling her up. The nanny was dead weight, heavy with engineered calm. The smell wasn't cheap liquor, it was mint, layered over a sharp hospital-grade chemical. Ellie's eyes landed on the flask. She snatched it. It was cold, heavy. A custom piece, etched with a meaningless spiral pattern. She unscrewed the cap. A clean, clinical vapor hit her face. This was not vodka. This was professional-grade sedation. "What is this, you whore?" Ellie didn't shout. She hissed the words directly into Brenda's ear. Brenda's eyes fluttered. She blinked rapidly, her pupils wide and black in the dim light. She saw the flask in Ellie's hand. Her composure, the iron wall she'd maintained for 6 months, shattered. "Mrs. Vance, I can explain." Brenda tried to reach for the flask. Ellie stepped back, tucking the metal container against her body like a weapon. "You explain what? Why you drugged my son with what smells like a goddamn veterinary tranquilizer? It keeps him calm. It's a prescription. A friend's," Brenda stammered, scrambling for a lie. "A prescription that makes him miss his feeding cycles and sleep through his required neurostimulation sessions. No, this is not for calm. This is for absence." Ellie yanked Brenda's phone from her pocket and hurled it against the fireplace mantel. It exploded into shrapnel. Ellie didn't waste time on a struggle. The threat was chemical, not physical. She secured the flask and backed toward the door. She hit the panic button concealed behind the nursery art, a direct line to the Vance family security director and the precinct captain. The nanny lunged. "Give it back! You can't! I need it!" Ellie sidestepped the desperate lunge. Brenda slammed into the wall. Ellie was already in the hallway, barking into the intercom. "This is Ellie Vance, 3rd-floor nursery. Immediate response. Chemical assault. Sedated child. I have the evidence. Lock down the building now." In the 15 minutes it took for the first uniformed officers and Captain Davies himself to enter the penthouse, Ellie had done 3 things. 1. Contacted the family's private security firm, Sentinel-4, telling them to hold anyone attempting to leave the building, especially delivery personnel. 2. Moved Alistair from the crib to a high-alert medical mat in the dressing room, away from Brenda. 3. Called Dr. Rylan, the family pediatrician, detailing the sedative's scent profile. When the police entered the nursery, Brenda Reese was sitting in the glider again, weeping soundlessly, the picture of a repentant alcoholic. She played the role poorly. Her tears looked too cold. Captain Davies, a man who saw too much wealthy theatre, assessed the scene with clinical detachment. "Mrs. Vance, we have the nanny. Where is the evidence?" Ellie presented the flask, holding it carefully between 2 gloved fingers. Gloves taken from the emergency medical kit. "It's a powerful sedative, not common alcohol. Alistair is breathing shallowly. He needs a chemical antidote, not a coffee. Ma'am, standard procedure requires—" "Standard procedure can wait, Captain. This liquid is Schedule 2. This isn't a drunk nanny. This is premeditated incapacitation." Ellie cut him off. She leaned in, her gaze relentless. And this wasn't just about sleep, it was about timing. Davies frowned. Timing for what? Look, Ellie pointed to the gold-plated plaque attached to the side of the crib. It was empty. Alistair's medical ID band, the custom one, it's gone. Brenda's sobs stopped instantly. The silence was the real alarm. The ID band. Davies walked over, examining the empty plaque. A simple bracelet, Mrs. Vance? Not simple. It's an authenticated biosequence ID band. It contains the microchip-locked encryption key for his genetic profile and biometrics. Vance Lock Security uses it to authorize any major medical procedure or to confirm his identity for the inheritance trust disbursements. You can't clone the key. You have to have the actual band. Davies looked from the plaque to Brenda, who was now staring at the floor, refusing to meet any gaze. Search her. Now. Two officers moved swiftly. They found nothing on her person but a slim wallet and a key card for the staff elevator. Ellie felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. This was too clean. The flask was a bomb thrown to cover an extraction. Check the crib mattress, lift the rug. This woman is not a common criminal, Captain. She's a professional, Ellie urged. Davies signaled for a wider sweep. The lab team was already en route, but time was a luxury Ellie didn't have. Alistair was still too quiet. Mrs. Vance, why would they risk drugging him? Why not just take the ID band while he's awake? Davies asked, his skepticism returning. Because the ID band is secured by a low-frequency radio beacon. If it leaves the perimeter of the Vance penthouse without being paired to my key fob, Sentinel-4 triggers a full citywide lockdown and notifies the FBI Cybercrimes Division. But the beacon only checks for pairing when the subject, Alistair, is moving or conscious. If he's unconscious, the beacon assumes a deep sleep or medical status and only checks every 8 hours. They needed a 4-hour window. Ellie's mind raced, connecting the dots of Brenda's meticulously structured schedule. No feedings past 6 p.m. Always the same pre-sleep lullaby, always a 4-hour window of deep sleep scheduled. She needed exactly 4 hours, Ellie stated, her voice shaking with controlled rage. Just enough time to remove the band, place it in a shielded container, and get it to the drop point outside the geo fence. An officer emerged from the ensuite bathroom. Captain, look at this. He held up a small, vacuum-sealed pouch, no bigger than a credit card. It was hidden behind the silver-backed mirror. Inside, nestled in a layer of foam, was Alistair's ID band. The micro-light on its side was blinking a slow, steady green. It's shielded. It must be lined with some kind of Faraday material, Davies muttered, taking the pouch. She didn't get it out of the penthouse. She was interrupted. Brenda finally spoke, her voice flat, devoid of the previous pretense of tears. I didn't get paid enough for this. Who paid you, Brenda? Ellie demanded. The nanny offered a weak, contemptuous smile. The people who hate your husband's face more than they care about their own prison sentences. They offered me $20 million to get that band to an inbound private jet at Teterboro. I just needed 1 more hour. $20 million. The payment alone confirmed the scale of the operation. This was corporate espionage, or worse, leveraging the Vance assets. And the sedative? Davies pressed. Dormitol 4. It's clean, Captain. No residue. Untraceable after 6 hours. The vial is in the kitchen trash compactor. They provided everything. The shielded bag, the schedule, the money in crypto. I was supposed to inject it into his bedtime bottle, not use the flask. The flask was my mistake. Ellie moved toward Alistair, now wrapped in a thermal blanket. The sedative's effect was receding, but slowly. She needed proof. She needed the vial. Check the compactor now, Ellie ordered, ignoring Davies' glare. She did not take orders from the police in her own home. She gave them. The moment the officer stepped out, Brenda lunged again, but not at Ellie. She launched herself toward the large floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "She's going to jump!" Davies yelled. Two officers tackled Brenda mid-air, slamming her into the thick, insulated glass. The impact was sickeningly loud. "They told me if I failed, they'd find me," Brenda gasped, her voice raw. "They'll kill me if I talk. They have everything I love." Ellie stared at the nanny, now restrained in handcuffs. The $20 million mistake. But the fear in Brenda's eyes was real. It wasn't about the money anymore. The officer returned from the kitchen, holding up a small, sterile, amber vial encased in a biohazard bag. "Vial found, marked Dormitol 4, almost empty." Davies took the vial. "All right, Mrs. Vance. We have the evidence, the suspect, and the missing item. This is no longer a simple domestic incident. We are calling the Bureau." Ellie nodded, but her attention was elsewhere. She walked back to the dressing room, running her hand across Alistair's feverish forehead. Dormitol 4. Untraceable after 6 hours. The people who ordered this knew the Vance family protocols. They knew the chemical properties. They were professionals. Ellie Vance's face hardened. She knew what came next. Interrogation was useless if the nanny feared death more than prison. The organization behind this attack was still out there, alerted by Brenda's failure. They had leveraged the life of her son and failed by minutes. She looked at Captain Davies. "I want a full perimeter lock. No one leaves this building. And I want Brenda Reese in a secure cell, away from the general population. She is not a suicide risk. She is an assassination target. We'll handle the security, Mrs. Vance. Our priority is finding out who commissioned this," Davies said. Ellie shook her head slowly. "No, Captain. Your priority is to process the scene. My priority is to find out who commissioned this, and I'll start with the list of people who knew my son was allergic to peanuts and would therefore require a custom-filled, peanut-free bedtime bottle that the nanny was supposed to inject the sedative into. The list of people with that specific medical knowledge was short. It was impossible to mistake. The attack was initiated by someone deeply embedded in their inner circle, someone with access to Alistair's private medical history. Ellie turned her back on the chaos of the police investigation and looked down at her pale, sedated son. The flask was the lie, the sleeping baby was the truth, and the truth was a betrayal. Ellie reached the foyer. Captain Davies stood by the grand staircase, arguing quietly into his radio about the perimeter security. The Bureau was already en route, a black stain on the Vance family's reputation. "Captain, that list." Her voice was low, cutting through the static. Davies sighed, pocketing the radio. "Mrs. Vance, we're running background on the nanny. We're working through her contacts, finding the money trail. The Bureau will handle the high level. The money trail is cold. Whoever contracted this won't be traceable through Brenda's bank account. They used a bearer bond or a shell crypto transfer. You won't trace it." Ellie didn't wait for him to argue. The point of failure was the delivery system. The sedative was time-sensitive, meant to be gone in 6 hours. They wanted SIDS, not a poisoning. They needed a perfect vector. She stepped closer, forcing Davies to drop his posture of professional distance. That vector was the custom-filled peanut-free bedtime bottle. Only 5 people in the entire Vance organization knew 2 things simultaneously. 1, Alistair's life-threatening peanut allergy required a separate, custom-prepared bottle at night, and 2, that Brenda Reese, the nanny, would be the one administering it tonight. Davies narrowed his eyes. "A medical history breach. Got it. But where do I find that list, Mrs. Vance?" "You don't. I do." Ellie moved past him, heading toward the library, her heels echoing on the polished stone. She stopped at the massive oak door, placing her hand on the silver crest. "Send 2 uniforms to the main office floor. Seal the access to the CFO's vault. Tell them it's a standard evidence containment procedure. No one enters. No one leaves." "The chief financial officer?" Davies was clearly confused, but the certainty in her tone brooked no argument. "Richard Hayes," Ellie confirmed. "He manages the private health funds, the household payroll, and the staff contracts. He also authorized the expense for the nanny's advanced allergy training last month, a week of total isolation where they could have easily recruited or coerced her." "That's a jump, Mrs. Vance." "It's a deduction, Captain. If you want a conspiracy, you need money and access. Brenda Reese had the hand. Richard Hayes had the key to the vault." She opened the door. The library was the only room untouched by the police chaos, the heart of the family's privacy. Richard Hayes, a tall, impeccably dressed man in his early 50s who had been Robert Vance's best man, sat in an armchair by the unlit fireplace, talking calmly into his phone. He looked the picture of concerned corporate loyalty. "I'm telling you, Bob, the media has this wrong. It's a domestic theft that got complicated. Ellie is overreacting, but her priority is Alistair. I'm here now, managing the legal team." He lowered his voice, noticing Ellie standing by the door. "Gotta go. Ellie's here." Hayes rose, forcing a look of weary sympathy onto his face. "Ellie, terrible night. I've already contacted Max on your behalf. We'll contain the Bureau's narrative." Ellie walked to the large mahogany desk, her eyes never leaving his. "Richard, who paid Brenda Reese?" His practiced smile didn't falter. "That's what the police will figure out. I've given them all the access they need to the household expenses. We hide nothing." "The sedative, Richard. Dormitol 4. It's untraceable after 6 hours. The organization that created this knew the Vance protocols. They didn't want to poison Alistair. They wanted him to die peacefully in his sleep. A tragedy. SIDS. They needed the perfect window. A night where Robert was out of town, and only the nanny would be checking on him." Ellie reached into her pocket. She pulled out a thin, folded sheet of paper, a printout of an internal memo from the Vance Group's private medical wing. "The allergy protocol for Alistair was put in place 3 weeks ago. It specified that the regular bedtime formula was too risky, requiring a custom mix delivered to the house daily in a sealed, labeled bottle." Ellie smoothed the paper on the desk. "The only non-medical person who approved the payment for the custom formula and its delivery was you, Richard. You knew exactly which bottle she would be injecting the Dormitol 4 into tonight." Hayes's composure started to crack, a hairline fracture around his eyes. He didn't deny it. He just studied her, a new, calculating expression replacing the sympathy. "You're a clever woman, Ellie. Always were. Too clever for a domestic spouse." He walked around the armchair, putting the piece of furniture between them. The sedative was the organization's insurance. It was designed to look like a fluke, a tragedy. The flask was Brenda's panicked attempt to create a cover story when the police showed up too early. Why, Richard, you had everything. A 40-year friendship with Robert. Access to every decision, every stock. Access to his bad decisions, Hayes countered, his voice suddenly sharp, devoid of the earlier feigned warmth. Robert was going to run the company into the ground with the new satellite project. He rejected the acquisition bid from Sterling Global, a $200 billion deal. I had 5 years of my life tied up in that merger's success. It was my future. He gestured around the luxurious room. Robert was sentimental. He wouldn't sign. But with his only heir dead, a tragic loss, the company's stock would plummet, forcing a fire sale. Sterling Global gets the company for half price. I get a $10 million exit bonus and a seat on the new board. You killed a baby for a bonus. I secured my legacy, Ellie. Alistair was an unfortunate, necessary complication. The Dormitol 4 was clean. You're lucky you noticed the flask, or Alistair would have slept for 6 hours, metabolized the chemical, and woken up dead in the morning. No evidence, no scandal. Just grief. Ellie's hand shot out, grasping a solid bronze bookend from the corner of the desk. She didn't lift it to strike. She used it to smash the small, decorative panic button discreetly hidden beneath the lip of the desk. 3 quick, sharp clicks. Hayes flinched at the sound, realizing his mistake. "What was that? Don't be stupid, Ellie. The police are downstairs. They won't believe a corporate conspiracy over a distraught mother." "They don't have to." The heavy oak doors burst open. It wasn't Captain Davies. It was Max, her head of security and legal counsel, flanked by 2 private, non-uniformed operatives, ex-special forces. They moved with silent, brutal efficiency. Max's eyes, usually calm, were cold. "We secured the CFO's vault, Mrs. Vance, as you requested. Richard just confessed to everything, Max. To me, to the room. The motive, the Sterling Global acquisition. The vector, Alistair's peanut-free bottle protocol. The chemical, Dormitol 4. Ellie kept the bronze bookend on the desk. She never needed to use it. She just needed a distraction. "Richard, tell them again about the $10 million bonus." Hayes lunged for the door, but the 2 private operatives intercepted him. One sweep of the leg, a sharp twist of the arm. He was on the ground, silenced by pain. Ellie looked at Max. "Secure him. He is not a police matter yet. He is a financial and political matter. Call the bureau lead directly. Tell them the money trail is no longer Brenda Reese. It's Richard Hayes and Sterling Global. We'll offer the location of the contracting organization, but only in exchange for immunity for Brenda's failed attempt and the complete silence of the Vance Group's involvement in the takedown." Max nodded once. "Understood. Where should we put him until the bureau is ready?" Ellie walked past the struggling CFO. She looked down at him, not with rage, but with a cold, final calculation. "Put him in the wine cellar. Seal it from the inside. Let Captain Davies and the police finish their domestic investigation on the nanny downstairs. When they leave, we hand the bureau a neatly wrapped corporate conspiracy." She straightened her jacket. "Brenda Reese failed to deliver the death, but she gave us the truth. The flask was a lie. The sleeping baby was the betrayal, and the betrayal just bought us a company.